So we're going to go on to two of our faculty, two of our project partners, to hear from them. So first of all, we're going to come to Ross Parry. Ross is Professor of Museum Technology and Deputy Head of the School of Museum Studies at the University of Leicester, which is where I'm coming from today, incidentally, camping out in one of their rooms, having had a meeting with him. So Ross is going to share some reflections on what we've heard from the two of our cohort and also the programme more generally. Over to you, Ross.
Thanks, Anra. And it sort of feels like I could shout it up the stairs to you because you're in the room above me. Word like inspired and inspiration, they get thrown around quite a lot in kind of contexts like this, but I really am moved and inspired to hear Giovanna and Christine's story of what they've done on the program and where they're taking their organizations next. And reading the case studies online and going through the digital pathways resources and seeing those materials that are now there for everyone to use, I can hear the consequences of some of those workshops that we ran and that brilliant training and leadership that Anna and the team showed in Culture 24. I can hear the benefits of, well, Giovanna put it, the coherency of language. So having that clarity over a common language that we understand around the word digital, that yes, it's something we use, something we manage, something we create, and something we understand as a cultural thing. Just having that box of 4 descriptors for digital has enabled this group and is enabling us as we all go forward now to have a cohesive conversation, a clear and specific conversation. What we're also hearing, and thank you, Matthew, I saw Matthew from Vocalize in the chat, congratulating, Giovanna on her journey. And I think that journey word's so important because as you'll see in the resources online, there are many routes to digital maturity and to many routes to being a leader with digital literacy. And we notice from the examples of a wildlife trust and a university museum that there isn't one laminated card that says this is the route. What this process is showing us, and what we've seen right across this cohort, and what we see with so many others that we work with on one by one, is that every individual, every team, every organization will need to frame its own story about how it wants to mature digitally and how it wants to build that digital confidence. So that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing in these case studies, and that's what we're seeing in this learning. And I think that's a huge message for us to kind of share today, is that situate your own story around digital maturity and what sort of leader you want to be in your context now. And what we've also just heard are two professionals, two leaders who are thinking about systems, they're thinking about vision, they're thinking about the culture they want to set, they're thinking about how to give their staff agency, they're thinking about the future. So that reminds us of the need for a holistic view. Whenever we're thinking about leadership, what sort of leader we want to be, and then that leaderful behavior as we adopt and adapt to digital, we need to think about every corner of the organization. How our vision will prioritize digital, how our leadership and leaderful behavior will activate, how those processes and systems will enable digital change to take place, how that culture will support it, and how our staff will ultimately drive it. We're hearing that just in those quick tableaus that you heard. Maybe a final couple of things to say. It's so moving to hear both Christine and Giovanna talk about nurturing staff and supporting staff and well-being. And I think that's what is so important to notice across this work and as we go forward in terms of how we lead digital. Yes, it's about projects and procurements and cables and code. And yes, ultimately there is technology and hardware and software involved. But what you're also hearing is the importance of emotional intelligence, of leading with empathy, about being mindful of your own actions and understanding how precarious our sector feels more widely at the moment because of a confluence of different emergencies taking place around us. Let's remember that digital leadership is importantly about emotional intelligence. As I hand back to you, Anra, I would also say quickly that this is also an example of the brilliance of partnership as well. Having cultural organizations sharing together, peer-to-peer mentoring, but involving universities, involving consultants, involving companies, and involving support agencies and professional bodies as well. Look what we can achieve together when we collaborate and we work strategically like this on a program as excellent as this. And we're back to you.
Thank you, Ross. Hear, hear. Again, lots and lots to unpick. We're starting to get some questions in the Q&A, which is fantastic. Do keep those coming. Patrick, you have a challenge because you've got 4 minutes. So Patrick was one of our faculty. Patrick Towell is Innovation Director at the Audience Agency Group. And you're going to share some thoughts too. Over to you, Patrick.
Well, thanks very much. I'm always fascinated to hear what everyone has to say, and also the kind of wider policy context that that Josie gave us as well. I'm really sorry that Katie's from People's History Museum isn't here today to present her own project. So I thought I'd just mention a bit about data. So I remember when speaking to her and to the rest of the cohort about data, I always tended to emphasize the idea of data as an asset. So just as we're used to tangible assets like buildings or collections, data is an intangible asset. And sometimes just that is a very powerful shift, both for us as leaders, but also, you know, if we have museum and heritage professionals, that's clearly then something that we conserve, we preserve, we look after, we organize, we manage, we document actually. I actually didn't know exactly what Giovanna was going to say, but it's just amazing, the echo. It's very easy to get tangled up in the what and the how of data. And my message is always, when we're the leaders, we need to start with the why. We need to start with the why. That's our leadership job. And that's actually explaining the why to others. And so one of the reasons to collect data is to inform decision making. And in that case, the purpose and context of use can be described in terms of 3 things. Who is making what kind of decision about what area of the organization, or what kind of what activity or service or experience or area of operation. And it's that who, what kind of decision and what's being affected that then drives the data that you collect and how you organize it and present it. And so, for example, decisions about programming and curation are very different to commercial ones about retail. And boards tend to think in one way and discuss things in one way, whereas for a front of house customer services team will understand things in another way. And so this is an exhortation to design. And so to design the information, the data is not what you need. Data is like the raw material. It's the earth, the ore that you dig out of the ground. Information is the stuff that's meaningful to us humans. So you need to design it for who's going to use it, what they're going to do with it. And the thing is, there are so many brilliant specialist designers now who are great at dashboards, infographics and stuff like that. And like anything else, as a good kind of design managing leader, you can test the information with users and check that it achieves their and your goals. So that's just, in a sense, a little bit of a thought about data and information. The other thing is kind of recognizing the current circumstances of recovery from and reopening after COVID, and not just our sector, but also the whole economy and the whole of society, and that very wider mending that needs to happen. The Heritage Fund, Arts Council England, local authorities, other funders are putting increasingly economic impact as a key outcome from their funding. It's not the only one, but it's something to be mindful of. And I kind of just want to put digital alongside this idea of innovation. So clearly not all innovations are about technology. We can change our organizations, fundamentally shift it, do things, as Ross was saying, around people and process. And indeed, not all applications of technology are innovative. But with care and purpose, again, another job as a leader is to put technology and innovation together. So, and we've perhaps got two jobs there. One is that as leaders, we set the frame of the challenge that we're going to set ourselves, or our teams, our collaborators, for which we seek innovative solutions. And just to be mindful that outcomes such as growth in revenues or profitability of certain areas, economic impact in your locality, or greater or higher value employment, these don't happen by accident. They happen, excuse me repeating it, but by design. And so we need to set those things as goals, if that is appropriate to an innovation, and pay attention to them throughout. And so then the other job as leaders is to manage change, to design and manage change, to make the innovation stick. And so, yes, there's loads of stuff to do with technology, selecting it, buying it, configuring it, developing it, testing it, designing, doing all kinds of connecting it together. I'm waving my hands in there because I think probably career-wise, I'm beyond knowing exactly how that works. But there's a whole load of other things around people and process. To make that business and economic side, we also need to think about changes in business models. So just to see that technology and people and process and business model change, or the way that we weave that together, is only we as leaders can do that. So to be mindful of how value is created and for whom, and how this can be turned into money for ourselves or others. Thanks very much, Anna.